right, you heard it here first. Let's jump over to their next record, which was A Hard Day's Night. And I just want to say for those of you who watch us live, I do have this album, and the reason, and I listened to it on vinyl like countless times over. This might be my favorite like Beatles pre like Rubber Soul pre Revolver album personally because it's just like it's also based on the movie that they had too, like the Hard Day's Night film. So they wanted to do like the film, and this was the soundtrack for it. But I love. There's so many great songs on this record. I'm gonna get to it in a second, but
So this is like
um,
pre-Taylor Swift releasing a movie and
yeah,
having like a music be a soundtrack for it or whatever.
exactly. I mean, that's just the truth. Now the Beatles. Hold on one second. Now we're jumping over the track listing for Hard Day's Night right now. So now we have A Hard Day's Night. I should have known better. If I fell, I'm just happy to dance with you. And I love her. Tell me why. And can't buy me love. Um, Side two is anytime at all. I'll cry instead. Things we said today. When I get home, you can't do that, and I'll be back. You know, I'm gonna go first again, of course, because that's the way we're rolling tonight. So for me personally, I would say this is a much stronger record. I feel like this is where John and Paul kind of came into like their actual like songwriting team, if you will, because there's no covers on this record. On A Hard Day's Night, there's no covers. It's A Hard Day's Night. It's Can't Buy Me Love. It's You Can't Do That. It's And I Love Her. There's so many great songs. There's a really lot. Some of my favorite Beatles, like pre psychedelic Beatles songs on here are on this record. Such as A Hard Day's Night, and I love like, I mean, the very first song when I first saw Paul McCartney live, the very first song I heard was A Hard Day's Night. So that's an immediate standout track for me personally. Um, but yeah, so A Hard Day's Night, my standout tracks are A Hard Day's Night, um, um, and I Love Her. Such like a great like just a quiet Beatles song, almost like solidifying like the acoustic, you know, sound, if you will. Um, like the just it's just a just George Harrison's guitar playing, just being like do 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 do, and without that introduction, that song never would have been like what it is. And I love that track, and I Love Her is a great song. Can't Buy Me Love, great song. Um, the Things We Said Today, You Can't Do That. Side two is a little bit like weaker in my opinion. But it's still written by Lennon McCartney or written at least by and at least two. There's no covers. That's the point, though. There's no covers on this record. Um, but yeah, like just I'm to me, this is when like the Beatles started really coming into their own of hey, let's just not just not like officially into their own, like, oh, like then like not like Revolver or Rubber Soul type of like yet, but or even Sergeant Pepper for that matter, but the very fact of the Beatles having um like just Lennon McCartney writing a lot of the songs on there and having George Harrison sing a couple of tracks here, or Ringo Starr sing a couple of tracks here, having them sing, sorry, really having the Lennon McCartney officially come into play here was a really big up for me personally, and I really enjoy this one, listening to it more and more again. Out of all of the pre like Rubber Soul Beatles albums, this probably would be my favorite. I have to say, of like the original, like before they went psychedelic and did drugs and all that stuff. This is probably my favorite. I have to say that. But yeah, like I said, Hard Day's Night, and I Love Her, Can't Buy Me Love, and actually you can't do that for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but just that one, just I like that one a lot. Let's just put it that way. So, but anyways, Mike, what do you got for A Hard Day's Night?
Yeah, man, this is exactly what I was looking for when I came into listening to the Beatles albums. Probably have a lapse of memory of listening to a full album of theirs outside of like obviously the White Album or like Abbey Road or any of that. But I may have listened to this in the past and just kind of forgot about it. But this album is like super solid. It's got a lot of good tracks. It's got a lot of memorable tracks for me. And it just kind of it I felt the filler on this was very little compared to their previous efforts. Hard Day's Night, Can't Buy Me Love, two of my I mean, definitely in the top 10, if not peeking into possibly a top five for Hard Day's Night. I think I'm gonna say it. It's one of my top five songs from them. Um, it's definitely up there. Can't Buy Me Love, great song. And If I Fell, I really, really like that song. I forgot about that song. Um,
Mm.
how good I like that. I just had the mood of it has a kind of somber mood. I like that kind of from the Beatles. It's This album feels a little more uh likely to explore some of those more somber elements in their written original material versus like a cover. Um I like I like that, and I love her. Great song. Has like a kind of a floating kind of serenading feel to it. This whole first side is really solid. Um, one thing I gotta mention, and you begin to see this throughout some of their albums in the very beginning, the lyrics that specifically John Lennon writes are super creepy when it comes to like that
Yeah.
guy that's like trying to control a woman and like you're gonna do what I say. I'm like, like I began to like see some of those things and this album, next album, so on and so forth that just really I was just like, man, this is it definitely makes me like wonder about him. And like I know he's got a storied past of domestic issues and whatnot. And like you begin to see like I can see where someone would gain that kind of thing with some of the lyrics about like, when I get home and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, you know, I didn't realize that. I never really understood that about the Beatles. Like, I like had a vision of them being these paranoid, like you're gonna love me whether you like it or not, kind of a message that they send. And later on in some albums, you really see some scary lyrics that like could even be on a heavy metal album. Like you could probably do a cover and people would be like, "Whoa, that's brutal." Like, no, that's the Beatles. But anyway, you get to the second side, and I'll cry instead anytime at all. Anytime at all is great. Good song. Solid start. I'll cry instead. Things we said today. Decent. The end of this album is a little lackluster. Um, Definitely not my favorite, but the at the end. But I mean, this whole album is solid. So for me, I'm struggling between an 8 and 8.5. For this one, I'm gonna go 8 for now, just because um, it's definitely one of those albums that I feel like has a lot of memorable songs that are on their official, you know, uh, their greatest hits, and that I just personally feel like it's a really strong album to be one of the ones that could even meet alongside the other albums that they were known for.
Yeah. And now we jump over to Kyle. What do you got for a hard day's night, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, we all seem to be in pretty much agreement on this one. This is definitely a huge step up from the album before this. The fact there's no covers on here, JT completely agreed. Seems like they really got into their lane with the Lennon McCartney songwriting team. They really stepped that up. I mean, that intro, the Hard Day's Night, that intro chord there, it's perfect. I mean, that's one of the most iconic moments in music to the point where nobody has been able to replicate that since. Um, Also agree this is front loaded. The side one is significantly better than side two. I mean, in terms of highs here, you got Hard Day's Night and I Love Her and Can't Buy Me Love are my top three here, all from side one. I'm gonna have to disagree with Mike on If I Fell. I know me and Mike disagreeing is a pretty common thing, but not really into that one. But the only other song other than that that I actively don't like, which may be an unpopular opinion with some Beatles fans, is Anytime at All. I know a lot of people really like that one. Just kind of annoys the hell out of me. I think John Lennon just sounds annoying as hell on it. And yeah, this is the album where, like Mike said, you do start to really hear some of John Lennon's creepy ass lyrics that did not age well, especially in music like this. And this album really did cement them as the true first boy band, though. And I would say this is the first album of theirs that is an iconic album and is an actual solid album from start to finish. The filler is still there, but it's not as boring or as bad as previous albums was. So I mean, for me, this fits in number 6 on their discography overall.
All righty. You heard it here first.